Be inspired, supported, and empowered. This is the Global Healthy Living Foundation podcast network.
When I graduated high school, I got 2 scholarships, one for arts, and at the same time, I got full scholarship to study medicine. And my mom said, if you go into arts right now, it will be very difficult for you to get back into medicine. And when I graduated medical school, I did my residency in pathology, so I became a pathologist. And when things became really hard for me with health problems and chronic migraine, I decided, you know what? Let me go back into art.
Welcome to Talking Head Pain, the podcast that confronts head pain head on. I'm your host, Sarah Shaw, Senior Manager of BIPOC Community Outreach at the Global Healthy Living Foundation. I have been living with chronic migraine for almost 10 years, and I'm very open about navigating life with my chronic disease journey as well as my experience living with anxiety. This podcast will be a window into other patients' lives as they navigate their own journeys living with chronic pain, migraine, and mental health. Today, we're joined by Nahid Shukralla, a visual artist who lives with migraine. We're going to dive deep into her story about how she merged her migraine with her visual art. Hi, Nahid. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Sarah. Thank you for having me.
I'm really excited to dig into your story and learn a little bit more about your amazing art. But let's first start off with walking us through, if you can remember, what your worst migraine attack has been.
So I have many of those bad migraine attacks, and I've been to ER several times. But one migraine attack that always sticks with me that I can't forget is when I was pregnant with my son. So I was in my early 30s. I was about 6 months or 5 months pregnant. And I developed severe migraine that for 3 days, I couldn't move my head left or right because of the pain. And I had to stay home from work and couldn't even fall asleep at night because of the pain. Couldn't even lie down flat. And after 2 days, the third night, I was just sitting in the bed and holding my head straight because I couldn't move it. And at that point, my husband, he woke up from sleep and he looks at me and the tears were pouring down my eyes because of the pain. And when he saw that, he said, okay, we have to take you to emergency room. And at that point, so we went to emergency room. They admitted me and the doctors were really puzzled what to give me for pain medication. The regular analgesics didn't help me, of course, Tylenol, ibuprofen, and being pregnant, that was a limitation of whatever medication they gave me. And whatever they could give me at that time, they did, and nothing worked. So even in the hospital, 3 days, again, holding my head straight, can't move it with severe pain until somebody came with a suggestion that maybe we'll try antihistamine medication. Some of the literature mentioned that it's safe in pregnancy, and if they give it IV, rapid IV, that might help. And that was the third day in the hospital. And when they pushed that IV in, it's just like everything brightened in my eye. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can move my head left to right.
Wow.
Yeah. So that was something that always stayed with me, other than going to the emergency room, being severe pain. But that particular, incident always stayed with me.
Yeah, for sure. Listening to your experience, it made me kind of think and reflect about the limitations and challenges of what being pregnant, people who are pregnant have to deal with, and the limitations of what they can and cannot be on when you are pregnant, and just about making treatment safe and effective for people going through pregnancy, and how difficult that must have been for you. 3 days of not being able to move your head from left to right. You just have to keep it straight. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That sounds really awful and painful. I'm glad that you're no longer in that space again. We're going to touch on your migraine artwork in a moment, but I would love to know what drew you to art in the first place. Like, how did you get into it? Walk us through that background.
Well, I was always into art. Since I was a kid, I would always be sitting with a pen and paper and just sketching, drawing, whatever it came in my mind, and coloring pencil. Even if I was watching a TV show as a kid, I would have a sketchbook in front of me and I would paint. And as I got to high school, I had art teacher that she was really impressed with my ability to paint, and she really encouraged me in that direction. So I became really better and better at the techniques. And the thing is that when I graduated high school, and that was in Bahrain, I was born and raised in Bahrain. I got a scholarship, two scholarships actually. One for arts, and it was only two people at that time in Bahrain that got that scholarship. It was me and another person. And at the same time, I got a scholarship to study medicine. And I really had a passion to study medicine. So I was like in between the two. Okay, what should I do? I love arts and I love to become a doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And it was at that time that my mom advised me. She said, if you go into arts right now, it will be very difficult for you to get back into medicine. But if you go and study medicine right now, you can always go back to arts. And I'm glad that I listened to her, because that's what happened. That when I graduated medical school, I did my residency in pathology. So I became a pathologist. And when things became really hard for me with health problems and chronic migraine, my daughter was born. So I have a son and a daughter. So when my daughter was born, and I found it very hard to practice full time, and with my chronic migraine, it was really difficult. So at that time, I decided, you know what? Let me go back into art. And I went back to art and I joined private classes and I went from there.
Wow, your journey is really interesting. And I think it kind of goes to show the way that we pivot and navigate when we're faced with life challenges of being, thrown like a chronic
Yes.
illness, like chronic migraine. I know for me, I can kind of relate in like the same sense of thinking I was going to end up in a career. So I did event planning for probably close to 8 years. And it was a lot of really early mornings and late night events. And that wasn't working. My migraines had become more severe, kind of like
Yeah.
you, where you're realizing you have to pivot.
Yeah.
And I just love how you were able to pivot in a way that still focused on migraine. And like now's the part that I really want to dig into is I found you through Instagram and through your Instagram account where you bring your migraine auras to life, which I think is so fascinating because I feel like migraine auras, they're talked about a lot, but there's not a lot of visual representation. I know when I first had my first migraine aura, I didn't realize it was a migraine aura. I just kind of thought everybody like had these little, like for me, mine were kind of like snowflakes, or it would be black and then I would just see white spots everywhere. And I just assumed everybody was dealing with that. And it wasn't until like 3 or 4 years in when I learned about, like, okay, that's an aura, but there's a lot of literature on it, but there's not a lot of visuals. That's why I really love your account where you brought that to life. Can you talk about what inspired you to take what a lot of people will explain, right? A migraine aura is it happens right before you get the migraine attack. So it's kind of like a warning, and how you turned it into these amazing visual art pieces. What light bulb went off for you?
Yes. So, as I told you, I got into private classes and I started doing oil painting, landscape, still life, and also acrylic. And then, I guess I always saw these auras, but as you said, like I can relate to you, I didn't recognize them as such, that these are auras or something that I'm seeing until, my migraine got worse and I started getting treatment, Botox treatment. And that when I noticed that, okay, just before my migraine, I'm seeing like different shapes and colors And at that time, it was mainly bluish colors. It was really beautiful. They look beautiful, moving like stars or a yellowish blue. And being into art and studying all these different pigments, so I could relate to those colors that I'm seeing. And then I started focusing more and more on them. Okay, what are these? And then I realized, oh my gosh, these are auras before migraine attacks. I started to capture them at the beginning just by coloring pencil on a sketch note and writing notes about them. Then I progressed to painting them in acrylic, in oil. So I had a big canvas in my basement that whenever I saw an aura, I would start painting it. So I did few of those paintings. Then eventually I realized, you know what, this is not making sense because migraine auras are moving shapes and colors. They are not static. So where would I capture what I saw? Just for to give you an example, if it is a star that I'm seeing, the star moves in spirals and it changes from big size to small size. If I am painting it, I can't capture that because I can just draw the star either big or small. Even if I represent them in different shapes, still I can't capture the movement.
Right.
So I noticed that my son at that time, he was into to sketching and painting, and he got me this app Procreate, and he told me, Mom, maybe you should try this, the digital painting.
Mm-hmm.
So I had that on my computer for a while, but I could never find the time to dedicate and sit and learn it. It was until January 2020 when I broke my teeth.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I broke two bones in my feet. So I had to stay home because my foot was in cast. And I thought, you know what? To pass time, let me dig into digital painting. Let me see if I can master that or not. And I did. And for 2 months that I was homebound, I, practiced on my own, looked on YouTube and basically self-taught myself. I started at the beginning just to learn how to do landscape. And then eventually I started painting my auras. I saw them. And then I started animating them. And I said, oh my gosh, this is a perfect medium. Finally, I can relate to the world, what I see. Animate them the way I see them so that, everybody else can see what we see and relate to it. To the point, I became so precise as to draw and animate my auras the way I saw them, which in the visual field, which quadrant of the visual field I saw the aura. Is it the upper quadrant, upper left or lower right? So I started doing all that.
Wow, that's really amazing. Like you said that you broke both of your feet. You kind of took a negative, if I may call it that, and turned it into a positive where you were able to actually slow down and like take the time to pour into this like beautiful representation, a symptom of migraine that isn't noticed as much in a visual way.
Right.
And you're absolutely right. You were talking about, okay, I can paint my auras, but that isn't a full representation of what an aura is because it's moving. Like you said, it doesn't stay still. And how has that been received? Like, I know you were creating this art and then you put it on your Instagram account. What sort of feedback have you gotten from the migraine community about being able to visualize these auras?
It was amazing feedback. I was surprised. So I started by putting these on Instagram, not knowing what will be the response. But then I got encouraged because some people would say to me, they comment, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I see. This is my most common aura.
Wow.
I said, wow. So people can relate to these auras and, they can relate to it. They seeing the similar things. And being from medical background, like I searched the literature, there is not much about auras written. So I was really encouraged. So I started then. As soon as I see the auras, of course, when I have pain, I can't draw. I can't do anything. I have to be lying in bed, dark till the pain goes away. So at the beginning, I was just writing notes And then later on, during the postdrome, I would be sitting with my iPad. And as you know, during postdrome, a person with migraine feels very exhausted and tired, although the pain is gone, but the physical symptoms are still there. And I would sit with my iPad for hours just trying to animate what I saw. And then when I posted on Instagram, people would comment that, wow, we didn't know that migraine looks like that. And then I also had other comments, people saying that my teenage daughter can relate to your auras. She can see, most of your paintings, she can relate to them. And that really encouraged
Wow.
me. And by the end of the day at Postdrome, I felt, okay, you know what? I am putting my auras there. The day has not been wasted. With Postdrome, we're still exhausted, can't do much, but I feel productive by painting my aura, by animating it and putting it out there, helping other people, make them feel that they are not alone and they can relate to my art.
Absolutely. And even past like this idea and notion of productivity, us even dealing or working through our postrum is doing something. And you are able to do even more than that after, you're experiencing a migraine attack to help the community. And dare I say, like, for people who don't feel seen or represented, or maybe don't know how to describe to their doctor what they're experiencing, now there is this visual template almost for people to be like, oh, this is like what I'm experiencing. And they have a name and they have a visual related to it. Because as we know, like there's this history of us being told or thinking it's all in our heads. And because we don't have like proof sometimes, like this is something where you can be like, no, this is exactly what my migraine aura looks like. And you're able to open up a dialogue and provide validation, I think, for people. So I'm really, really grateful that your account exists and that it's helping the community. And it's just this visual representation that you're absolutely right is missing. So I hope that researchers and doctors and other people in medical fields will look into your account and take the time to dedicate to the visual representation of auras.
Yeah.
I know we're coming down to the end, and so I like to kind of sort of end the episode where we talk about like mental health and self-care. I know artwork is also a form of self-care for people. Can you talk to us a little bit about what is your self-care routine to make sure you're taking care of you when you're in the midst of dealing with a chronic illness like migraine?
So my main strategy, I changed everything in life to make it easier for myself and for my family to deal with migraine and take care of myself. Open dialogue, as you said, with my family, is very important. My husband is very supportive. My kids are very supportive of me. They understand by looking at me that I have migraine and they let me take my time and rest. And I'm lucky also that I'm surrounded by friends who understand my disability. Not every outing or every plan works. It can change all of a sudden because of migraine. So I'm lucky, very lucky in that way. And the days that I am really feeling down, of course, and have migraine, I can't do much. But other days, if I'm feeling up to it, I go out, I go for a walk, I meet with friends. I think socializing is very, very important with chronic migraine because canceling frequent plans, it really isolates a person. First of all, spending one whole day or 2 days in bed because of the pain, and then the pre-drome and post-drome, that takes a toll on a person. 3 days where you can't meet other people, you can't talk, you can't do your work. And now that the migraine is over, now you have tons of work to catch up. And your friends and your family accommodating you and planning to meet your needs, that's very important. So, I like to be frank with my friends that, okay, I have migraine, I can't do this. Maybe we can schedule another day, and they are open to that. And then, so I don't have to feel socially isolated all the time. So that helps a lot. going for a walk, taking care of myself, doing exercises when I can, sitting with my iPad and painting. I find that's a big relief for me, a big self care. As I told you before, that I feel that, okay, the days were not wasted. I could do something for my migraine community and put my art there. So, yeah, these are the main things.
Yeah, you have an amazing catalog of self-care tips to kind of help you. And I think we can all I think society needs to take a page out of Nahid's book in terms of being open with like our family and friends and having a supportive community who understands us and meets us where we are and knows our limitations as to how we can engage after or during a migraine attack. I think having an understanding community and a support system is so beautiful.
Yes.
And I think more people in our community would benefit from that. And I hope that society, the more we do have conversations like this, can help break that stigma. So I appreciate your support system. And just one note that rest absolutely is productive and it's essential to get us back to baselines.
Exactly.
Nahid, I want to thank you for coming on the podcast today, sharing your story, and I look forward to seeing more of your art as you grow. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for having me. It was really nice talking to you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Talking Head Pain, the podcast that confronts head pain head on. If you like this episode, please give it an honest 5-star rating, write a positive review, and spread the word by sharing with your friends and family. It'll help more people like you find us. I'm Sarah Shaw, and I will see you next time.
Be inspired, supported, and empowered. This is the Global Healthy Living Foundation Podcast Network.